I met John back, I think, probably in 1981.
I joined this church in 1970, and John was here.
John was my Vista supervisor. He represented RCAP, Richmond Community Action Program.
Well, I first met John through my dealings with Hope in the Cities, which is a organization that concentrates on race, reconciliation, and accountability.
As far as I can recall, the first time I met John was at a retreat, a planning retreat of the Richmond Urban Institute.
I met him through the Richmond Urban Institute and was interested because he just seemed to be an easy person to be a friend with.
I grew up in Richmond, Creighton Court. I lived there until I was, 16, I think. Lived there all my life, and John came into the neighborhood. He knew my mom.
We used to laugh and talk. We always had coffee hour after church, and he would always joke about the food he would eat and the people, the tales he would tell them, and the things that they would say to him on the way back and forth as he traveled from one place to another on the bus.
John took the bus on purpose. He always rode the bus because riding the bus enabled him to be with whoever was on the bus.
He was a person who spent his time listening to people, laughing with people, crying with people, enjoying people, answering untold questions that people had.
He'd be having conversations with people at the bus stop. I mean, wherever John was, things were happening.
He would kid around, he always smiled. I never saw him get angry or upset or anything like that.
John was a natural in building community, which means he was very, very strong in selling ideas to people, helping them find their own strength, and encouraging them to build a better community and to build themselves up.
And everywhere he went, he just brought joy. And he made everything kind of funny. And he gave wonderful hugs.
My wife, Dean, loved him because she enjoyed his hugs.
But he was a person who had skills. He had charisma. He had an understanding about what it was he wanted to do. But he cared about people. And when you get to care about people, a lot of things can happen.
He was an innovator. He didn't hesitate to say what he felt was important for that particular group, even if it wasn't always easy to hear.
But he also was very forthright in sharing his struggles, his journey, and the bumpy road he'd been on.
And John wasn't perfect, John he had flaws, he had his ups and downs, and we were there with him through them, and he was just human.
As I walk the streets and consciously enter other people's arenas of activities, I realize that all people have a story to tell. When I stop to listen, I come away enriched through words spoken by people who often never get a chance to tell their story.
He was the sort of person who was a friend to a banker or a bus driver alike. It didn't matter to John, And his truth was the truth regardless of who he was talking to. And he did not judge people,
He brought people together. Whoever you were, whatever status or station or socioeconomic place you had in the society, John was fine. He was eager to know you, and if he was there in that moment with you, that was the important moment. He thought of himself as a bridge. He did, in fact, bridge a lot of worlds.
You have to build a bridge that is strong enough to bear the weight of the truth that you're trying to deliver.
Bridges get walked on, and that was so if you want to be a bridge person, you will pay some price for it.
He had this canny ability to see the needs that everyone had. And whether you were rich or not, he knew that there was a need for the two of them to connect, because all of us were in this thing together.
I will never forget this one moment when he and I were walking into the office of the Diocese of Virginia where we had this Bible study. And John said, I know what I'm going to do. He said, we're going to start a center at St. Peter's. What you going to call it, John? I'm going to call it the Peter Paul Development Center.
John saw opportunities all the time for his kids. Everybody was his kid. I mean, if you came and you told him one time you had something, you were his kid. And he just treated everybody that way. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to see.
And I got that too from the seniors. And this was a place they could come and have a social environment that they could enjoy and have lunch. And they loved crafts and having speakers. They were willing to include everybody and enrich everybody because they were in a safe place.
And the center is strategically placed in between 3 developing areas. And during that time, they were warring a little bit. Peter Paul was the safe place. It was the light. Because what he built really was a family. We cried together, we laughed together, and we celebrated together.
One of the things I'm so proud of is the center is doing what I feel John intended for the center to do now.
Damon and the leadership of Peter Paul are now able to engage as advocates for this community in a way that never was possible before.
And so his legacy here was just a faithful servant who was happy in God's love.
John was sent from God to this community, and there's no question about that. You just can't have people like that come through your life and not feel that you're a better person for it.
Richmond would benefit from understanding what the center has done and its possibility of what it can do for future generations. It is, I tell you, it's a transformation place.